Hi everyone, Teresa, Gregorio, and Elby here for the Knit Petite project, and this week we go over a little bit of the differences between sewing and knitting, talking specifically about fitting, which of course is what we're interested here in the Knit Petite project, and I talk a little bit about some of the greats and what they have to say about the differences between sewing and knitting, and that includes June Hemmons-Hyatt and Maggie Righetti. I also go a little bit into that really great book. It's a sewing book, but I've recommended it for a number of different reasons for us knitters, called Fit for Real People. Talk a little bit about what they recommend in there. And at the end of this week's post, I also have a nice little treat to share with you from Jill Wolcott. It's an interview. She is great to hear from for a number of reasons, in that she teaches at the FIDM in San Francisco, and so she knows a lot about fitting issues in both sewing and knitting, and shares some of that expertise with us this week. So I thank her, and I'm very grateful that we were able to hear from her and what she has to say specifically about fitting, well, for knitters across the board of all sizes for the Knit Petite project. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about those things, then check that out in this week's post. And so the question for this week has a little bit to do with what we discuss in the post. I'm asking you if you've ever used a sewing pattern to design for knitwear, because that's one of the suggestions that June Hemmons-Hyatt has. If you want to learn a little bit about designing, you can actually look at a sewing pattern with a few caveats, things you need to keep in mind, of course, and design your knitwear from there. So that was really interesting. I've never actually done that myself, so I thought I would ask the community if anybody has ever had a chance to do that, and what it was like for you if you did. And one other thing I want to shout out for this week and the rest of the weeks of July, I still have up that pretty important, very, very quick brief survey about if anybody's interested in doing either a knit along for the Knit Petite project. Very open-ended. You bring whatever sweater you want to the Ravelry group, and we work together to learn about fitting. Also, the workbook. I really need to hear about the workbook, because that would be a very huge undertaking, and it certainly isn't going to be something that we can move forward with if there isn't enough interest demonstrated in it. So if that's something you think sounds really cool, really interesting, would help you, then please fill out that survey and share it with any other petite knitter or anybody else you think would be really interested in seeing that sort of thing come to life, because we can't do it without support. So yeah, check out this week's post for a little bit more about what sewing can do for knitters, things that you can learn, different caveats you need to keep in mind when you're looking into sewing resources, the interview with Jill Wolcott, and particularly please do not forget to head on over to that link for the survey. It's only about 2 or 3 questions long. I encourage you to please fill it out and share it with everybody that you think would be interested in either a knit along for the Knit Petite project or a workbook that we could create. Thank you for tuning in this week and all the weeks of 2017, where we're going to talk about petite fitting issues in the Knit Petite project, and you can find me here, there, and everywhere as Canary Knits, and use the hashtag Knit Petite project if you want to ask questions or share anything. Please get a hold of me across the social media. I would love to hear from you, because this is, of course, collaborative, body positive, and non-judgmental, and I want us all to work together and collaborate to build a resource that we can all use as petite knitters. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you next week. We are signing off, LB and I, because it's time for dinner, and I hope you have a good week. I'll see you next one.